Hey everybody, welcome back to Two Spot Monkeys Live. This is episode 12. We took a week off because real life occurs, but we're happy to be back. And Jim, how are you?
I am doing well, Tom. How about yourself?
I'm awesome. Oh, we're not recording early in the morning like we did last time, so no coffee. I do have a different beverage, and we'll see if that plays a factor in our conversation.
We're more burning the midnight oil here than waking the roosters, but yeah, it's a little late, but not too late. And hey, it's the time when it worked for us to get together and talk wrestling, and that's what we love to do. So
That's
here we
right.
be. Um, I should say back up to an update maybe from the last episode. I did talking about figures. I did yesterday pick up four of the first six AEW figures. Local Walmart
Dude,
had
you're
them.
lucky.
BrickSeek. Have you been using BrickSeek?
No.
When we sign off here, I will teach you the ways of BrickSeek. Um, it tells you when they're in, and but I did learn the first day that I went there on Saturday they said they were in at one of the WalMarts locally. Sunday I went, nothing. The the pegs were there, had the stickers, nothing on the pegs. Said they had six or more. And I'm like, oh, and I should have probably found a staff member, but I just didn't want to be that person. Um, so Monday I got up and it said they had 3 to 4, and I'm like, like come on, of course. So took a lunch break, ran over again, and sure enough, they had Jericho, Kenny Omega, and the Young Bucks hanging on the pegs. Perfect cards. You know, they're okay. They're good. Um, their faces are, and they look to be smaller in. They're about the same height as a Mattel figure, but just width, I guess. I don't know what I want to say there. Their heads just look really tiny to me on there compared to a
Okay.
Mattel figure. But they're good. It's series one. They're going to get better as they go along on these. And I want this series because it's series one. I feel like it's going to probably be the one that, has some value down the road, maybe. So I've got those four. They're not displayed at all yet. They're still sitting in Target or Walmart bags across from me here because I am completely out of shelf space on my bookcase. So it's time to get some more shelving. No Cody yet, and nobody really is finding Brandy unless you ordered her from Ringside. Uh, Brandy apparently is going to be in the replenishment cases that come out. So
Was that the was she just low produced
they
from what
said
you
she
read
will
or
be in.
saw?
She will end up being less, and which will make her more valuable in the end. And I don't. Again, I think we talked about this last show. I don't really tend to buy female figures, but since I probably want to complete that whole set if I can, I'll probably snag her if I find her.
That's
Uh,
cool.
and of course, I'd love to find one of the Jericho or Cody chases, but that ain't gonna happen. So
Right. I haven't looked since last Thursday. Uh so I probably missed my window, knowing here. But either
well,
way, Walmarts are closing early here. Are they closing early where you live too?
they've been closing at 8:30. Now
Okay.
they're closing at 10. Hey, what's your zip code here? Well, everybody listens to us. Let me check for you, Tom.
Yeah, it's 49548. And while
Everybody's listening
you're
to us while we
yeah,
do a live BrickSeek check. I should like save my or share my screen so anybody who watches the YouTube can see what I'm doing here. Um, well, everybody finds out, is Tom going to go on a Walmart run first thing tomorrow morning?
what do you mean? When we're done recording, I'm gonna go break in the front door. No.
The only one in a what are they checking here? A I don't know how many mile radius. Muskegon, 35 miles away from you, does have six of them in stock.
Yeah, well, when I used to travel regularly for work, Muskegon was a
Right?
very regular destination, and I'm sure that I would have stopped at Walmart numerous times, AEW figures or not, but that's probably not in the cards. But we will. I'm glad I have the gift of this now, and I will be looking forward to you educating me more about BrickSeek
Yes.
after we record.
And there's a different site for Target that I don't think works as well. But anyways, well, now that you've all listened to 4.5 minutes of us babbling about figures again, um, shout out to our friend Annette, who gave us a really nice review on a message Facebook group, I guess, that you and I are both a part of, and talked about she could really hear our passion for the figures come through. I probably made it sound like I have more figures than I do. I mean, I've got more than my wife thinks I should have, but um, I've seen collections that are way, 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 way bigger than mine. Um, someday, I don't know, I'll have more as things come along, and things that I said last week that I'm going to definitely buy. We'll see if I ever find them sometimes out here. Although I'm now at a point where if I really want it, I'm just going to order it online because I'm not fighting AEW. I wanted to try to find in the stores though, and 4 out of 6, so I'm getting there.
And that's part of the fun too. So yeah, no, after we recorded last time, I was all up in Megalopolis's business and had fun checking out that site. Yeah, and appreciate Annette very much for engaging us in conversation in that way. I saw it and I saw your response, and it was in between tasks, so I didn't have the chance to respond. One of the things I did want to respond to, so I'll do it here. So Annette, this is a Easter egg for you. You had asked the question about the first figure that we bought, and I didn't see your response. So I'd love to hear you tell that real quick before we actually get on to why we're here tonight. But for me, it was, and I'm wrestling because this is quite a while ago. It's probably 31 years ago, but it was the Hasbro WWF series, and it was either Jake the Snake or Demolition Axe. And it was at a Kmart in Traverse City, Michigan, which is Traverse City is in northern Michigan. But we were on our way to, my grandparents retired there, and we were on our way north. And for some reason, we stopped there. And I think the retail price was like $4.99, right? I think pretty sure that was what those figures ran back in the day. And I'm pretty sure that I had like literally $6 to my name, And we went in and. It was one of those two. I can't remember specifically. I know I had both at one point down the road, but that day I walked out of there as gleeful as I could be with one of those two guys. And again, I had many figures in that set of all those series that followed, and I gave them to my cousin when I was a teenager, and that was the worst decision. One of the worst decisions I've ever made.
Mine was Hulk Hogan's LJN. So I started with the LJNs. I'm just a hair older than you. Started with the LJNs. I think we got 4 when we got the first set, I guess, or whatever you want to say. And for some reason, the 4 that stick in my head are Hogan, George the Animal Steel, Andre the Giant, and Randy Macho Man Savage. We had most of the early series of LJNs as they went along. Towards the end, didn't get LJNs, and then we did end up getting Hasbros. I think the LJNs kind of dried up in our area, and those later series got a lot harder to find, I know. And so I think they dried up in our area, and then we started getting the Hasbros, had a whole bunch of the Hasbros, had Jake, had Demolition, a whole bunch of those as well down the road. But Hogan was definitely in the first, and then that's kind of the iconic, wrestling figure when people think of one as that LJN Hogan. So that was my first figure. So don't have them anymore. I don't know if we gave them away or we sold them in a garage sale, or maybe we threw them away. I really hope we didn't do that. But yeah, some of the toys I wish I had back from those days. I had the Star Wars Luke Skywalker with a little lightsaber came out of his hand, and that are worth just a whole lot more money than we paid for them at that point. Now the only LJN I have is a loose Ricky the Dragon Steamboat in pretty darn good condition. That's a collection I'd like to go back and collect sometimes, but they're so bulky and they're harder to display. So I just haven't gotten, other than because I collect everything from Steamboat. I did buy his loose, so got a carded Hasbro of him. But anyways, on to things that aren't wrestling figures. Almost 10 minutes into this. We're turning into like the wrestling figure podcast. There's a Fully Posable covers that, so they're really good. If you haven't listened to the Fully Posable wrestling figure podcast and you like figures, go check Jeff and Scott out. They're good guys. But we're going to talk wrestling news this time around, and just kind of a hodgepodge of different things that Tom and I had on the list. There isn't a pay-per-view coming up this week for any preview. Look for that to come late next week. We'll get SummerSlam and TakeOver with picks and all of that kind of stuff. Update our standings as Tom continues to just smash me into the ground in our pick'ems. But we'll talk about that more next week. Mm-hmm. But let's start off with last week. Raw Raw's trying some new stuff, and all of WWE in some ways, but Raw, especially Shane McMahon, was announced as coming back, and he introduced in the third hour of Raw, not for all of it, but in parts of it in that third hour, the 10 o'clock hour Eastern time, Raw Underground, which is kind of it's not Brawl for All, because those were actually shoots. These are worked shoots. They're supposed to look like a shoot fight, but they're worked, of course. Um, to me, it's got a little bit. I just saw bits of it, but before Chikara shut down, they were doing the Crucible, and they had Crucible rules matches, which were kind of this style, although they had 2-minute time limits on those. So they had to be quick, where these just are ending quickly, regardless of any sort of time limit. Because Shane's very clear to say and continually say way too many times that there are no rules at Raw Underground. But last week we saw the debut of Dabba-Kato, who was Babatunde, which I thought was a cool enough name. I don't know why you had to change it. But Dabba-Kato, we also saw Eric of the Viking Raiders win a fight. Dolph Ziggler won a fight.
And the Hurt Business finished the show.
And then the Hurt Business, yes.
Just beating dudes up.
Yeah, beating people up and winning matches to start with, and then just beating everybody up. And then last night on Raw, we saw some more Arturo Huas, who had worked some Evolve shots and a little bit in NXT, mostly as an enhancement guy in NXT, though. Got to show off some of his wares. He is a Muay Thai fighter, I think, capoeira, something. He's got a nasty wheel kick, so watch for that. But he won a fight. We also had, trying to remember who else showed up there. Shayna Baszler was the big one. After Dabba-Kato came out and just destroyed a guy by grabbing him in the nuts and then punching him in the face, because I don't know why he needed to do that. Probably because he's like a monster and he could.
No rules at Raw Underground.
No rules. I mean, he could have just destroyed the guy who was like half his size, but no, he grabbed him. And then Shayna came out and they kind of had a face off, which I was like, well, that would be interesting. And then Shayna beat up 3 girls. It didn't really have a big climactic ending last week. One of my things with Raw Underground, tell me what you're thinking about it, Tom. I don't understand the point of it yet. It's just kind of a thing they're doing. They don't seem to be tracking wins and losses. It doesn't seem like they're calling anybody out, starting any feuds off of it. I thought it was a way maybe in week 1 to introduce Dabba-Kato. And it is maybe, and we'll see if he ever comes out of the Underground and into Raw. I don't know. Just kind of feels like a thing they're doing that maybe they don't even know what they're doing with it yet.
So let's park on that statement for 1 second. If you don't know what you're doing with it yet, why are you doing it?
Right. 100%.
You know what I mean? Like, if you're that desperate, why are we in an era where you're just throwing something out in the hopes that it sticks? And that's the thing. They've done that down in the past, down the road. And sometimes it's worked out. Sometimes it has actually hit, but give me something to care more about. So like I'm not caught up yet on last night's episode. So thanks for sharing what happened, to bring me up to speed. My wondering, the fact that you didn't mention that the Hurt Business continued to do what they did in week 1 makes me go, why the heck not?
They were not involved in Raw Underground for even a moment last night.
Right. So like that's frustrating. You know, when I think about how it ended on week 1, to not have any follow-up with their involvement in week 2 just goes, what type of thought are you putting into it? And I wish there was something like a time limit or rounds, or you name it, you make it up, right? Be creative, whoever is behind this. And if you're trying to be cool, like, I'm sorry, but Shane McMahon, you're not cool. Like, I know you wear Jordans and that's hip and that's fresh, and you had girls dancing with bikinis, and that's
they
hot.
got rid of the girls.
Oh, so see, the feedback from week 1 was obviously to not objectify women, so that's good. Because they missed the mark there. But the bottom line is, I hope that something else comes out of this. But to your point, Dabba-Kato, right? Have him have him win in 10 seconds. And then the next week it's 7 seconds or whatever amount of time, right? And then someone comes in and then they start challenging for that record or that spot. And then it builds the issue. And you actually want to see, hey, he's been knocking guys out or putting them out in X amount of time. This person comes along and now it's this. You have some emotional investment at that point.
Yeah. I did forget one match. I was just looking it up while you were talking there, Tom. Riddick Moss also won a match last night. So I really apologize for leaving a main eventer off like that. Former 24/7 champion Riddick Moss. And my shot is at their booking, not at Riddick Moss in any way, shape, or form. He actually now that I saw that he fought Cal Bloom, who was the son of Wayne Bloom from the Beverly Brothers, for a callback there back to the early '90s. And who I've heard they're kind of high on Cal Bloom, but they had him get beat by Riddick Moss at Raw Underground last night, so apparently not too high yet on him. And I agree, Tom, totally. I guess it's interesting. It's not makes me want to tune in and see what happens next interesting. It's just like, what the heck are we doing here? Interesting.
Did it still go only in the third hour last night?
Only in the third hour, and it did not close the show last night.
Okay. Well, so that's kind of cool in the way of like, hey, if it does interest you, if it's something that as a fan you're watching Raw and you're like, this actually piques my interest, it's obviously a hook to keep people around. And maybe they're not tuning in before that, but obviously I think their hope would be that people are tuning in before that. This is I would I not agree, but I think that you and I would share the same opinion that Shayna Baszler is made for something like this. Arturo Huas is made for something like this. There's other people as well. It's also a great way to probably freshen some things up and give a different platform for talents. I was really surprised to see Dolph Ziggler, but I thought it was it could be a good reboot coming off of the whole thing with Drew McIntyre. But at the same time too, Eric, why Eric?
Right.
So
the thing with Ziggler that I did think was good was McMahon talked about how he was the winningest person in Kent State wrestling history or something along those lines. So he gave a reason for why was Dolph there, which I agree with you. I think was really good. I did see Isaiah Swerve Scott standing around the ring last night, and my first thought was, if he's not going to fight, why is he there? He's a featured performer on 205 and NXT. Don't just have him as an extra. If he's not going to fight, don't have him just standing there. Those little things annoy me. Same thing with when they have people in the stand or like when Shotzi Blackheart has been at Raw or SmackDown. Shotzi has a very unique look, even with a mask on her face. That's Shotzi Blackheart. Don't put her in the crowd. You got plenty of trainees that nobody knows who they are. Put them in the crowd. And then 10 years from now, when they're big stars, we can have a fun time going back and go, hey, remember during coronavirus when, John Smith, the big WWE champion, was standing in the crowd over there? Wasn't that fun? Kind of like we can go back to the, what were they? Adam Rose's Rosebuds.
Yeah.
And Becky Lynch was a Rosebud, and Alexa and Braun Strowman and so many other guys who are now on the show. Anyways, that's an aside. So we're underground, to be determined, but Tom and I so far are scratching our head at what exactly the point here is. The rating did go up a little bit last week, I know. And last night's ratings just came out, and they went up just slightly. But hour 3 is still the lowest hour. Although the last two weeks with Raw Underground in them have done just over 1.6 million, where the week before that they did 1.46 million. So maybe people are tuning in a little bit for that. I don't know. I guess we'll see. Or maybe they're tuning in for something that I've read. WWE doesn't even know really what the end game yet is for. And again, if you don't know the end game, why are you putting it on TV? And that is our friends Retribution. There are 5 of them last week, starting with Raw and both on Raw and SmackDown. There have been these, the lights have been dimming or the mics have been cut or things like that. If you see any changing in Tom's lighting behind him, I know I mentioned it to him right before we started. We don't believe Retribution is outside of Tom's house. So he is safe, we do believe. They were in Orlando last night, so we think they're not in Michigan tonight. However, 5 people, at least one is a female. It kind of seemed like 2, although I've read that the 5 people who stormed the ring on SmackDown last week are not necessarily the 5 people who will be revealed as the members of Revolution or Retribution. I keep wanting to say Revolution. They may have been stand-ins. People were trying to discern by the voices. I saw a number of people saying they were sure Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano were 2 of the voices. Maybe. Ciampa was hiding his beard really well if he was there. So I kind of don't think it was him. Some people have said Dijakovic will be in this. He clearly was not one of the guys on Friday night. None of those guys were big enough to be Dominic Dijakovic for sure. I love factions, so let's start with that. So I love that we have a new faction coming in. I like some mystery. Who's the mystery partner going to be? Who's the mystery entrant going to be? Who are these 5 people under the hoods? Okay, I like that. I don't get. There have been some people who have been saying that this is modeled after Antifa, or whatever political group. I don't catch that. And I think that's people looking for something that isn't there personally. They're not saying anything political. They're against the establishment, but they're telling a story, and they're in the WWE universe. So if they're going to cause chaos, of course they're going to be against the WWE establishment. And they're far from the first faction who's ever been against the establishment. Yes, they're wearing black ski masks and things like that, but again, I don't know. I guess I don't see the political slant to it that some people are trying to draw to it. My only hope, or my only fear, followed by hope, my fear is that this is going to be like, say, the Nexus, where it comes in, it's the focus for about 4 or 5 or 6 weeks. It's really cool, and then they do nothing with any of these people once they reveal them. I just don't know, and hard to tell, I guess, without knowing who they are, what we think their chances on the main roster are. But they did cut the ropes at SmackDown. And Tom, you've seen SmackDown, so here's my thing with the rope cutting. I thought the chainsaw was fine, but every rope that guy cut, he turned around and cheered like he just won the World Series, and then he cut the next rope, and then he turned around and cheered again like he won the World Series, and then he cut the next rope. Like he didn't know it was going to happen. Like he was surprised. Like, hey, it worked, guys. I just, what in the world? So that part was really just made me shake my head. Last night they did the lights thing again. What's that?
It was his first time using a chainsaw.
Right. Hey, it really worked. I hit the rope in the right spot that was gimmicked so it would break. Last night there was more lights things. There was an important time when the lights went out. You haven't seen Raw yet, so I'm going to leave that alone and let you see when that happened. It worked for the story that was happening in the ring that the lights went out at that point. Retribution was not involved outside of that, and they threw a cement block through a glass door last night. So not a lot of major movement on that. What are you feeling about Retribution, Tom?
Yeah, so it was interesting when I saw the blurb a week ago Monday before their debut, when they lit the generator on fire through the Molotov cocktails, and they hyped the debut of a new group. I didn't realize that was like their thing on that night, and they were behind all the other stuff. I actually thought the way the show ended a week ago Monday that the Hurt Business was like rebranding themselves, because they were all dressed up and they were spiffied and they took over Raw Underground, and I was like, but this faction already exists. And then a couple days later, of course, then it came out in like WWE.com or their Twitter feed. They were like, "Oh, we've learned the name, and it's Retribution." And I was like, "Oh, okay. I guess I'll wait to see what happens." So then, of course, watching SmackDown, 5 people. I thought, to echo your point, I thought it was 5 or 3 males and 2 females last Friday. I hope that it's not, that the reveal isn't who we are actually seeing, because they don't look intimidating at all in their physical stature.
They all look like they're teenagers.
Yeah, it looks a little goofy to me. So those are my initial thoughts. And whenever the reveal happens, it's going to have to be something bigger than lights going out or rope cutting or attacking someone or scaring the announcers away. Like, you're gonna have to like create an unexpected title change, or I don't know, if there's a stipulation match and someone loses and you didn't expect that to happen at all, right? But it's there, but they're the ones behind it. Just to have more of an impact, I think.
My fear for their impact is that they're going to chase Akira Tozawa. And if we get the Ninjas versus Retribution, we won't be able to tell anybody apart, and it's going to be just a cluster. Um, SummerSlam coming, you got to figure they're going to play some maybe major role at SummerSlam. There's a lot of rumors about Payback being the week after SummerSlam, which is just really bizarre. They've apparently put it on the calendar. They haven't announced anything. So could they do something at SummerSlam that sets up some big multi-man match with Retribution at Payback? And that's why they're going to have Payback. Kind of like the old Survivor Series, and then this Tuesday in Texas a few years back, like 30.
Just a few.
28, whatever it was. But until they announce the Payback is for sure on that week, the things can obviously change too. So I don't know. Something's got to happen there, and I agree. It's got to be something big. It can't be, I just joked about 24/7 title. It can't be that. They did flip a car over last night too. No mention on commentary as to whose car it was. Just it was a car. They had it flipped over, and they were like kicking it and hitting it with bats. And okay, you flipped a car over.
And at least in the first two things, Raw and SmackDown from last Friday, no one stood up to them. No one. The people are afraid. I'm guessing that happened last night too. No one's standing up to them.
No. Right after they threw the cement block through a window, some random security guy ran up to them and said, "You guys got to get out of here," and then they left.
Okay. All right. That's
meanwhile on SmackDown, while they beat down that female trainee. Granted, they made it very clear that it was a female beating up the female trainee, so thankfully nobody can get all worked up about that. Nobody tell Lance Storm it wasn't an intergender match, but sorry, he had an opinion. But none of the other trainees helped. Me, even the ones around, didn't help. Nobody came from the back. I agree with you. Like, this turns into why won't anyone help Sting? From the old WCW days. So, two things. They're trying new things. I'll give them that. They are trying new things. Perhaps introducing new characters that may mean something. Hopefully, in both cases with Dabba-Kato in Underground, and then also whoever Retribution ends up being. I would be fine with Ciampa being kind of the leader of Retribution, because I think he could do a really good job of that. And we all know he can cut promos phenomenally, but why not then even disguise his voice and have him start doing that if that's where we're headed? Because right now it's just a bunch of people running around going, we're taking over. Nothing happens. Like, I don't know. It's late at night, people. That's what I think. Let's go to something that I think is being built a little bit better than Retribution or Raw Underground. No shock, it's on NXT. And that is the Adam Cole, Pat McAfee situation. McAfee had Cole on his show a couple of weeks back, made some short jokes or talked about him being on the smaller side. And in what I didn't think was a work at the time because of the language used, Adam Cole went off on Pat McAfee and dropped F-bombs and, was cussing up a storm. You wouldn't think in the PG world of WWE, and granted, it didn't happen on WWE programming. You wouldn't think that would be okay. So I really thought it was a shoot, and that he lost his cool. And maybe it was, but I don't think it was now. Everything fell into line way too perfectly, way too fast. I think this was the plan. So we're headed towards Adam Cole and Pat McAfee at TakeOver 30 the night before SummerSlam. We also have so far for that TakeOver Io Shirai versus Dakota Kai. We don't want to get into picks necessarily on that show yet, as we'll do that next week. But also they're doing a 5-way ladder match for the North American vacant title. Bronson Reed is in that match. Damian Priest is in that match. There will be a 3-way this week between Kushida, Cameron Grimes, and a mystery opponent. Here we go with the mystery again. Maybe it'll be somebody from Retribution. Who knows? But they'll fill the third spot, and then the 4 men who did not lose the fall in their match. So Johnny Gargano, Finn Balor, Ridge Holland, and whoever doesn't lose the fall on Wednesday night will meet in 2 singles matches in, I guess, a week from now, to determine the last 2 spots. All that being said, let's talk about Cole McAfee for a minute. I have to admit, if you would have told me Adam Cole is going to face Pat McAfee at TakeOver before the interview happened on the radio and last week's build happened, I would have said, God, why are they wasting Adam Cole on this schmuck? He was a good punter. He likes to be bombastic. It's kind of his thing. But why? Why? After those 2 things have built up, I kind of want to see Adam Cole kick the crap out of Pat McAfee. So they've done an okay job turning me around on that. How are you feeling about the build, Tom, for Cole and McAfee?
Yeah, I thought it was really enjoyable, and I thought, while I wasn't a fan of the tag title match being a backdrop to this, especially because Kyle O'Reilly returned and he looked to be in great shape and had a kind of a new, cool look. I'm never a fan really when they have like big matches that are backdrops to angles, unless in rare circumstances. So that didn't click for me. So I needed to make sure that I spoke to that. That being said, I did not diminish how I liked how this came together. It's a little odd though, because in a way, why is Pat McAfee this super jerky heel guy? Because that's not. I mean, he's the celebrity. So typically, you don't have the celebrity come in and they're the bad guy. And Adam Cole has been perpetually the leader of the Undisputed Era and devious, and had a 403-day title reign and relied on every trick in the book to stay champion. And now here, this issue is afoot, and it appears that he's being positioned as the person we should be getting behind, and we want to see him hopefully get revenge because he got his head kicked off.
Yeah, they definitely turned the Undisputed Era babyface last week in my eyes. You had them lose to Imperium, after being distracted by the issue between Cole and McAfee, and then McAfee absolutely doing heelish things throughout his commentary, and then kicking a man while he's not ready for it is certainly heelish. So I think it's interesting to turn them babyface at a point when I kind of thought maybe the Undisputed Era had done all they could in NXT and might be ripe for a call-up to the main roster. I wouldn't think you'd turn a babyface right before that. You'd think you'd want to get a little bit out of a babyface turn, although it was a strange turn, if it was even. And it may only be for this one match, and then we go right back to them being dastardly heels. We've seen that before in WWE and in other wrestling places. So I think that's really good. I love, to flip to the TakeOver build really quick. Shirai and Kai are going to have a great match. I have no fear there. They've done a nice job of making Kai a focal point here the last few weeks, which I've wanted to see because I've always liked Dakota Kai. And I really like this kind of I just don't give a crap persona that she has now about anybody else. She only cares about herself kind of thing. And I love that they're putting new names in the NXT North American title picture, because that really had almost become a second world title as far as who it was that was always competing for it. And then it got merged, obviously, when Keith Lee won, or I don't know if merged is the right word, but the same guy was holding them both. And I love that Bronson Reed is getting a chance here at TakeOver. I was happy that Dexter Lumis was getting a chance, although he got injured, so he's not going to be in that ladder match anymore. Thought maybe Ridge Holland was going to be my guy, but he's still got another chance. Even though in the fantasy league that Tom and I are in, I've now dropped him again. But Damian Priest, right now, if you without knowing who the other 3 people in the match will be besides Bronson Reed and Damian Priest, Priest is going to go in as the favorite, you would think, depending on who, because they definitely seem to be behind him. But I like that they're doing it in a way where they're trying to put new names into that mix. Right now for this Wednesday, 2 out of the 3 names we know are Grimes and Kushida, both new to the title pictures in NXT as well. Who knows who that third person will be? Maybe it'll be Kyle O'Reilly. Who knows? Um, so I've liked that part of it. If you would have told me Bronson Reed was going to be in a three-way with who was he with? Gargano and
Roddy.
Roddy Strong. Yeah, thank you. If you would have told me Bronson Reed was walking out the winner of a three-way match like that, the way they used him so far, no, that wasn't going to happen. I like Bronson Reed. There's something about him that I just clicks for me. The thick boy, as he calls himself. So I'm happy to see that. I don't know how you're seeing that build.
Yeah, one more comment on Cole. Just a wondering that I have is if they're not turned, formally or informally, could this be the first crack in the Undisputed Era? Could Adam Cole's mouth have finally written a check that he can't cash? Because it seemed like what transpired with, again, Fish and O'Reilly getting distracted, causing them to lose their shot at the titles, becoming 4-time champs. They mentioned on commentary that Roderick Strong was telling Cole, hey, knock it off, pay attention to the match, don't worry about McAfee. Yet Cole was just so obsessed. Like, could this be, hey, Cole's on the verge of beating Pat McAfee at TakeOver, but Undisputed Era walk out on him? Obviously, we're jumping ahead, and we're going to talk preview next week, and we'll have two more episodes of TV and behind us to use to reflect on. But just a thought that came with me when I was watching that play out. But yeah, I'll echo your thoughts on that North American title. A ladder match, love it. No, when they debuted the title, and it was in that ladder match, and I think it was 6 guys. Was that Dallas? No, that wasn't Dallas. New Orleans. New York?
Could have been in New Orleans. Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. Again, that was awesome. So I expect this is that next wave of talent. Ironically enough, though, I do think that we're going to get Gargano and Finn Balor in there after those singles matches, but we'll see how those play out. And we'll, of course, preview that down the road. But yeah, injecting the freshness. And again, Bronson Reed is welcome on that picture. Damian Priest, he's been hanging and lurking around for a while. He's had a couple of opportunities here and there. This may be that opportunity where it finally breaks through.
And I'd have to, without knowing who the mystery person is, and that certainly could sway this, I'd have to think Cameron Grimes has got a really good shot at being in that match as well, because they have been featuring Grimes quite a bit here in lately and around that North American title when he was, being a little bit of a pest to Keith Lee. So, which is kind of a good role for Cameron Grimes. So, moving on, we just wanted to touch quickly on SmackDown. There's a women's battle royal coming this Friday. We don't know who's in it other than it is a tri-branded battle royal for the SmackDown women's title shot at SummerSlam. By doing a tri-branded battle royal, if they have someone from SmackDown win it, it was pointless to me. Otherwise, why do that? Why bring the other brands into it? So I've been trying to think of who makes sense. You've got Asuka and Banks, obviously. I spoil that a little bit for you, but I think that was obvious where it was going. Do you go Shayna Baszler? What if Shayna Baszler wins the Battle Royal and goes against Bayley? That would be interesting. And especially if you even had her beat Bayley, and maybe she goes to SmackDown. I don't know. Any thoughts on who you think it might be, Tom?
Yeah. Listening again in the last hour to finishing SmackDown and hearing that announcement by Stephanie and trying to process that and think through, it would have been cool if we would have had a graphic before SmackDown ended, or even after that announcement happened, to kind of get a picture, because then you can kind of say, oh, maybe her, maybe her, maybe her. I think with the way things have been going on NXT and the other brands, Raw and SmackDown, kind of having a couple of the ladies having their own piece, Shayna's a good choice. I think she might be focused on Asuka or Raw Underground. Who knows? I'm gonna go with Tegan Nox as a guess. I think Tegan Nox could fill that spot nicely. I think she might have done everything that she can do too at this point in NXT, where even though she just won last week, but bumping her into that SmackDown slot and having her go after Bayley, I think that could be a great match, number one. But then another great new fresh opponent.
they did a little promo for SmackDown last night, and they showed just kind of random. The two that stick in my head from that promo were Lacey Evans and Rhea Ripley. I don't think Lacey wins it, and Rhea could, but she's got things going on with Mercedes Martinez and the Robert Stone brand, so that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I think more likely we might see a Rhea Mercedes match at TakeOver get announced here this week. So
I wouldn't be surprised, though, now that you mentioned that, to have Rhea win and still face Mercedes on TakeOver
and work both shows,
and then and still be on SummerSlam.
And that could be. Rhea certainly. Those will both be good matches. Rhea and Mercedes, I think, will be real good.
Maybe it's time for Rhea to get the call up, and maybe that's why.
And that could be.
Yeah.
And maybe she puts Mercedes over on the way out, kind of thing. To really help build Mercedes, which I certainly like a lot better than Rhea and Aaliyah. So, or Rhea and Aaliyah and Robert Stone from a couple of weeks back. Robert Stone's a great character, but I don't necessarily need to see him in the ring. Two more things we wanted to chat with you tonight about tomorrow, whenever it is tomorrow, tonight or in the morning or whenever you're listening to this. And the first one is AEW. Their build for All Out is coming. We'll do a full preview, obviously, sometime the week before All Out, I'm sure, as well. But so far, the only match officially announced so far is Jon Moxley defending the world title against MJF. And Tom, I know you've got some thoughts about this because we've kind of talked about it in the group that we're in Facebook. So the floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah. So much like I kind of thought before with the previous build of Brody Lee and Brian Cage, one of these times when you bring in one of these strong heels, and arguably MJF is the strongest heel, perhaps outside of, and actually probably outside of Chris Jericho in AEW, the trigger is going to have to get pulled. And especially when you look at the story of MJF, that he's literally not lost a singles match. He's lost a match, but he did not take the fall. So he has like one loss on his record. It isn't his loss. He's very clear about that. And I recognize that, like, we're still in the pandemic and we're not getting back to super, maybe life is normal. And maybe we are. Maybe I'm making excuses for the product to justify things that I'm seeing that I don't agree with, perhaps. I don't know. This match didn't reach me right away when I knew it was coming, because I could see the foreshadowing of how everything was coming together. And obviously they're going to build it some more. I think the build so far has been good. I think that the dynamic between Mox and MJF is going to be great. Interested to see them square off in the ring. Maybe they have before, maybe they haven't. I don't know. And unfortunately, with disappointing, unfortunate, odd, weird news that college football is probably not happening at all anywhere. At least in the northern part of the United States. All Out was kind of on my maybe list. It's moved into my absolute definite list now. There will be an All Out viewing happening over here at this house because my teams that I support in college football won't be playing as of today. So so just that's where I land with that right now. I have a couple other thoughts on matches we may see, but we don't have to dive into that necessarily now. Tell me what you think. I know you're high on MJF. So yeah,
I am, and I think this match works for me. Although I do agree, they could have done a little more build to get there. They kind of went there quickly. I think they had Fyter Fest and then Fight for the Fallen, and then they were like, okay, now we got to get something going for All Out right away, instead of kind of using those to build towards All Out, which they maybe did in some other little ways too, but around the world title especially. I think you could have gone back to Cage, honestly, for All Out, because Taz threw in the towel, and do some sort of last man standing, or I quit. Since Taz quit for Cage, maybe now you have to be careful there, because I don't think you need Brian Cage saying I quit. So maybe that's not the right idea either. But a last man match maybe would have been a good way to go. I don't think after all the build they've done for MJF to have no losses in the singles matches, Jon Moxley should not be the one to give him his first singles loss. They should use that for someone. MJF can actually help build someone now with that having been his life for the last year. Frankly, I think it should be Jungle Boy at some point because they've had a rivalry. They've had some really great matches. I think that would be, then there could be a lot of fun promos around that, and it would be a good way to bring Jungle Boy up a level when he's ready. And I think he's probably getting there. Or the other person I could see would be Darby Allin because they're clearly seeing an awful lot in Darby as well. I don't know if Darby needs that win, though, to be honest with you. I think he's already there. So I know I'm getting ahead of myself into the pick'ems, but unless they do something in the next couple of weeks that changes my mind, I don't see how you do this match and not put the title on MJF at all out. Yeah. And I agree with you. They're going to start running out of strong heels if they don't. The money's in the good guys chasing the heels, and outside of Chris Jericho, who's the one guy in that company that can probably run his mouth enough to make you go, man, I want to see somebody come and just kick the crap out of that guy and take that belt from him. It's MJF. No question. Probably the second or third best promo in that company behind Jericho and maybe Moxley. Moxley is really good in his own way, different way, obviously. But, so I think it's been interesting. I think some of the other build, they had a lull show here 2 weeks ago where it was just kind of a down show. Things were a little sloppy. Nothing really was great. It was like, meh. But you know what? When you have weekly television, 52 shows a year, you're going to have a clunker now and then. I think they came back in a big way last week. I think this week looks like it's going to be really good. It's Tag Team Appreciation Night. I love me some tag team wrestling. The Rock and Roll Express and Tully and Arn are going to be there. They're not going to work each other, which I think that'd be even cooler. We're going to get that match again 30 years later, but we're not getting that. But wouldn't shock me to see the Rock and Roll Express work a match, though. They have worked for AEW before in the past. So they might end up in a match, but I'm trying to remember the matches they have. But there are a couple of really good Young Bucks and Evil Uno and Stu Grayson, which we, all know if we've been watching long enough. That's Young Bucks and Super Smash Brothers who were tearing it up 10 years ago together. So that should be really fun just from the familiarity that they have with each other. Frankly, I think it could be Grayson and Uno's best match in AEW to date without even, it hasn't even happened yet. And you got the rematch with Jericho and Orange Cassidy, which was great the first time around.
$7,000 bounty match.
$7,000 obligation.
Yeah.
How you feel about the orange juice getting dumped on his coat? It's hokey. Jericho does hokey. That's kind of what he does. Orange Cassidy definitely does hokey. You've seen AEW from last week, is that correct?
Yep. Yeah.
I knew it was coming, but Cassidy being smart in a couple of his replies in the debate, I thought was great. I thought he did a really good job. I thought Bischoff played off it well too. As the moderator went, oh, all right, didn't see that coming. I kind of knew it was coming, but it actually worked a lot better than I thought it would. So interesting to see if they go, does Cassidy win this match and they go to Jericho Cassidy 3 at the pay-per-view, the rubber match with some sort of stipulation on it, or I don't know. Be interesting to see where they go because you're going to really have to hotshot something for those two, and you would think they'd both have spots on the pay-per-view if they don't do a third match between them. So be interesting to see where it goes. And Matt Hardy's going to kill Sammy Guevara at the pay-per-view is my assumption. Because Sammy got a little reckless with a chair that he wasn't supposed to threw the wrong chair. And wowza, did he bust Matt Hardy open.
Outside of the main event last week, that was like the hottest segment, in my opinion, on the show. And like good, bad, or otherwise, you know what I mean? Like sometimes it's that element of like the unknown or the real that you go, okay, I'm perked up now.
Right.
So
you made me care about a Matt Hardy program a lot more than I thought I could. Granted, unfortunately, it was through throwing the wrong chair and it busted him hard way. But they got heat on that program now. Let me tell you, they got heat. And Matt Hardy, I think, is going to work pretty snug with the young man and remind him about why things are done the way they are in this business. Sammy, you're going to get run over again.
We're 3 weeks out from All Out. Does that sound right? Is that
Uh,
actually be on Saturday? Is that actually right?
let's see. So it's September 5th. It'll be 3 weeks from this coming Saturday.
Okay.
So
So
about three and a half weeks right
they
now.
have a lot to build over the next 3 shows then. I mean, they
Yep.
got 3
They have four. They have 4 Dynamites counting tomorrow night.
okay. Okay.
Spoiler alert: we're recording this on Tuesday. I think we've said enough tomorrow's and last night's that people should know that we were recording this on Tuesday. Yeah, they've got 4 Dynamites counting tomorrow. So uh, be interesting to see. Have you watched any of the Deadly Draw tournament on YouTube?
I have not.
Yeah, I haven't either.
I've paid
I followed the results, but other than
yeah,
that,
I've paid attention to some of the names, and it's cool again. Just like I think that Cody Open Challenge, where they brought in a couple of different names, and Eddie Kingston got a contract out of it, well deserved, nonetheless. That's not to stray too far off, but just it needs to be stated that like AEW is kind of doing some cutting edge things in a way that is fresh and it
yep.
feels new, and they are the new kid on the block. So maybe it's easier to like tolerate when they have a down week and then they bounce back. Where we've had Raw for so long, we've had Raw since '93, 27 years, right? So and that show's evolved, of course, and there's been a lot of iterations of the different eras of WWE during that time. But it's going to take more than just a Raw Underground or so I'm going to call them so far hokey 5-person faction causing havoc to like really like make the product feel different than it does.
Yeah, I agree with you totally. Last topic that we want to hit tonight is just breaking news from earlier today. Ring of Honor is returning to television production later this month. From a tweet I saw from Ian Erikabani, it sounds like maybe next week, actually. So we should have some new content on their TV show, hopefully, maybe even by the end of the month. I'm thinking they're going to try to work to get that out pretty quick. I think Ring of Honor has done a really nice job of trying to stay connected with fans. They've had some trivia contests that I've been a part of. Spoiler alert: we've won and finished second in 2 out of the 3 weeks, 2 out of 3 months that's happened. So, yay, Team Greg H. They've done some Dungeons and Dragons videos. They've done some kind of out of the box things. They've also done a week to week show, which is kind of a little bit like WWE Backstage was on FS1. Promos and things like that. So they've done some interesting things. Unfortunately, they haven't had a show now since March. Let me run down, Tom, what the 18th anniversary show was, which was the first show to get canceled. Then, of course, the past versus present show. That wasn't going to fit in storyline as much, I wouldn't think. But where they were when they shut down back in March, the Ring of Honor World Heavyweight Championship match for the 18th anniversary was going to be Roosh defending versus Mark Haskins. The TV championship match was Dragon Lee versus Bandito, and man, I'm ticked we didn't get that match. I'm sure we will, but holy smokes, that's going to be good. Tag championship match was Gresham and Lethal versus Marty Scurll and Flip Gordon. Be interesting to see. There was some accusations made against Scurll, and there was an investigation launched, and Sinclair has said nothing since then. So it'd be interesting to see if they just try to ignore this and let it go. We don't want to get too far down that rabbit hole, but we'll see. Briscoes versus Dalton Castle and Joe Hendry. Shane Taylor versus Dan Moff versus Kenny King versus Bateman, with the winner getting a title shot of their choice in the future. Jeff Cobb was going to take on Slex, who we know won't be around anytime real soon, unfortunately, because he is in Australia. Session Moth Martina, who is in Ireland, so won't be back for a little while, was going to take on Nicole Savoy, who debuted for AEW in their Deadly Draw tournament. So interesting to see if she will sign with either of them. I thought she had signed with ROH, to be honest, but apparently not, because she worked AEW the other night. Eli Isom was going to take on Bully Ray. Bully Ray has since gone from Ring of Honor. And PCO and Brody King of the Villain Enterprises were going to take on Ray Horace and Alex Zane. Brody King has made it clear that he's going off on his own, so it looks like Villain Enterprises may be done moving forward in Ring of Honor. We'll see. PCO probably going off on his own, which makes me wonder if they're going to keep Scurll maybe off TV for a little bit and let that whole situation come to a conclusion, or are they going to just let it try to simmer down. I don't know. And again, I don't want to get too far down that rabbit hole of that situation. I think they should look into it and they should make smart decisions about what they need to do there, regardless. But they've been pushing the Pure tournament in there week by week. So I think that's going to be a real focus here of the TV tapings that they do in the next month. And before the COVID situation happened, they had announced all 16 competitors for the tournament. Obviously, there are some of them who are not going to be able to be a part of it. They've introduced some other people who are going to be a part of it. We don't know the full list of 16, but here's who was going to be in it before COVID. Doug Williams, Jonathan Gresham, Alex Shelley, Rocky Romero, Mark Haskins, Slex, Tracy Williams, Marty Skrull, Fred Yehai, Yuji Nagata, Joe Hendry, Dalton Castle, Ren Narita, Josh Woods, Tony Deppen, and Jay Lethal. Out of those, I would expect that Doug Williams cannot get here right now. Slex definitely not coming over. Yuji Nagata and Ren Narita also, I would expect not to be making it. So, there's what? Four?
Yeah,
at least people they need to buy.
Haskins, probably 2. I thought he lived
Haskins
in the UK.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
And Shelley's a tag champ over in Impact. So.
And I don't know where Joe Hendry actually lives. So Joe Hendry could be questionable too. Right. Yeah, and Shelley obviously works for Impact now. So definitely some people they're going to have to replace. They have had a promo. Doug Williams did cut a promo a month ago maybe and said when he can, he will be coming for the Pure title. So we will see Doug Williams back in Ring of Honor. David Finlay announced this week that he's coming. In his promo, he said, and I don't even know who the current champion is or if there even is one, but I'm coming for the title. And I was like,
Give him some context. Like right. send him a summary before he cuts the promo.
Right. I was like, and you used that promo. You didn't call him back and be like, you got to do that again, David. He even mentioned that he usually works for New Japan, but can't right now because he's in the States and can't get to Japan. Jay White is in the States. Could be interesting. But Wheeler Yuta, I don't know if you're familiar with Wheeler Yuta at all. He's worked some MLW, he's worked Beyond, and some other places. But he announced on the latest Week by Week that he is coming to Ring of Honor and is coming in for the Pure Championship, which I think is a really good addition, actually. Yuta is really good. So it'll be interesting to see, until we have the list of who actually is going to be in that. A part of me says, if you don't put that title on Jonathan Gresham, what are you even doing? What are you even doing? But he also is a tag champ right now, so maybe you don't want to do that. I got to be honest. I'm excited for Ring of Honor to come back. They were just starting to maybe build some things that I think looked really interesting before the shutdown happened. Obviously way out of their control. The whole situation for all of us has been out of our control. I'm excited to see it. I'm ready to stop having best ofs that I just kind of delete off my DVR each week because I've got Ring of Honor set to record and start watching some things that actually matter. And I don't know if Roosh is in the country either, or if he is down in Mexico as well. Or AEW got Pentagon out of Mexico, so maybe we can do that still. Interesting to see, but I'm excited for Ring of Honor coming back. Thoughts from you, Tom, on Ring of Honor and the Pure Championship, maybe?
Yeah, for sure. I'm very excited to hear their return today. It was good, exciting news to come across the wire, and the fact that they are going to have some focus and some emphasis on those first few weeks, month, maybe month and a half of TV to crown a champion. Again, let's go back to what we say oftentimes on this podcast. We both love tournaments. So the more tournaments, the better. Probably not a true statement, but you and I both won't turn our eye away from a tournament.
Coincidentally, I did just make a ruling. I don't know if you've seen it yet. I'm breaking news to you. In the fantasy wrestling league that you and I are both involved in, you are not allowed to have any competitors in this tournament.
Nice. Yeah. So, and again, with having some new names that they're going to have to infuse in, I think that'll be fun to see play out. So one name we didn't mention that I am eager to hopefully see be re-involved in ROH and before I jump to his name, I will say the fact that Tracy Williams was on that list when we were running down that list of the anniversary show. Tracy Williams was absent, but again, knowing that I think he was maybe coming back from an injury or something along those lines, and I think he was
so.
going to be ready by the time that the pure tournament started. I think he's cut out well for this too. But the guy that I'm eager for, and don't know where he stands with Ring of Honor. I had to think that they're going to reach out and say, look, listen, we don't have tons of guys, but you're a name that we'd love to use, and that being Jeff Cobb, because that whatever he was potentially going to do or not do with AEW didn't turn into a long-term deal. So him back in the fold at Ring of Honor, especially if you're going to put Marty Scurll kind of behind the curtain and keep him there so the other nonsense that's been going on can either simmer down or be resolved. By nonsense, I don't mean to diminish the claims. I mean the fact that it's actually happening or did happen in today's day and age. So Jeff Cobb, I think, could be a huge asset, not only in Ring of Honor period, but as part of a pure title tournament.
Yep. I think a couple more names to keep a lookout for because they've been recent guests on the ROH Strong podcast. Mike Kanellis, or Mike Bennett, I guess now he's going by again. I think certainly could be a strong candidate to show up in Ring of Honor. And Matt Sydal, I think also will be back with Ring of Honor here before too long. He was going to work that past versus present show, and I assume that was going to open the door to some other shows probably too. So I wouldn't be shocked to see that. And they could both work the pure style. Bennett probably a little bit more than Sydal, but Sydal can do it. He's a technical guy too, even though he's got the flying. And now as he gets a little older, he probably shouldn't fly quite as much. So if he can work a little more mat based, that might be a good thing too. Personally, for me, I was really hoping we were going to get to see Jonathan Gresham versus Doug Williams. Like, I don't know why. That just sounds like a really fun match to me. Mat based, all of that. And Doug Williams' Chaos Theory to me is one of the more underrated finishers ever in pro wrestling. I just think it's great. And Shorty G uses it now. Change his name if we're turning him heel, by the way. Good Lord. But change his name anyways, because Shorty G is a stupid name. But sorry, WWE talk here in the middle of Ring of Honor. But I love that he's using that move because I just think Chaos Theory was a cool finisher. So I'm excited. We'll see what's going on. MLW looks like they may be coming back in the not too distant future as well. Of course, New Japan is back. Tom and I are both woefully behind our New Japan watching, hence why there was no New Japan conversation here. We kind of know what's happened, but yeah, we're a little behind on catching up. New Japan's getting our money, but we're not getting anything out of it because we're not watching it right now. So wrestling slowly but surely reopening. Tom, in all of your extra time to watch new wrestling that you haven't watched before, that I know you're just dying to fill your time with, there's a company out of Chicago called Warrior Wrestling to look into. They had a show last Friday night that I bought on Fight, and I've got one of their other shows in the past. They bring in, it's almost a PWG kind of thing, although it also uses a number of Chicago talents that I think are kind of interesting. Brian Cage versus Jeff Cobb was on top. Brian Pillman Jr. is their champion, which I'm a little on that right now. But they had Alex Zane on that show. The Rascals were on that show. Lance Archer was on that show. Warrior Wrestling. Everybody check it out if you get a chance.
And they were at a high school football stadium, yes?
They were. And if you've seen any of the aerial shots, they have people, they're actually like 10 or 15 feet apart, not even 6 feet apart, the groups, both in the stands and on the field. I mean, they did a really great job of spacing people apart. And you got that crowd response, though, which was cool. They found a really creative way to do it, and I got to give them credit for that. I hope it, made them some bucks. And honestly, that was part of why I threw them my $15 on Fight. I still haven't finished the show, but I've enjoyed what I've seen of it, and I've enjoyed the other stuff I've seen from them. So they don't run too often, but hey, because we all have more time in our world to watch more wrestling, or not. But Tom, anything else you want to talk about before we call it an evening here, before it gets to be Wednesday, your time?
No, this was fun. I appreciate the good conversation. And again, lots of good things to catch up on. And you could even say it's the good, the bad, and the ugly, because I think we hit all three tonight on this episode. So yeah, I look forward to connecting again in a week, not having another break. So let's not let life get in the way. And when we come back, we'll be previewing Takeover 30, which is kind of hard to think about, and
Right.
SummerSlam.
Yeah, two big previews coming in the same show next week. We'll just do one show probably, and preview both of those shows, and do our picks and see if I can regain any ground on Tom. Before then, we should probably talk about too. We hit on it last month before Extreme Rules. That's what that awful show was. Whether we want to come up with a side bet or how we want to handle that moving forward. So we'll talk about that in the next week, and come up with something for y'all to hear.
Yeah, look forward to that.
Maybe it'll be an AEW figure, and I'll teach Tom how to find it on BrickSeek so he can send it to me. But all righty. Hey, everybody, thank you for listening, watching, whatever it is you're doing. Again, we're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, we're on Google Play, we're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Overcast now, which I don't even know what that is, but apparently that's a podcast app. There we go, easy enough to say. And spoiler alert, the next time we record, we might actually live stream that show and tell nobody about it while we're on YouTube. And maybe there'll be a show in the future that we'll live stream to YouTube and tell people about it. Maybe we'll do like a post game after a pay-per-view or something. Tell folks about it. And we actually have the ability to invite people in. So who knows? If we got people that want to maybe talk about it with us live, that'd be kind of a fun show to do sometime. So spoiler alert, lots of things coming from Two Spot Monkeys in the future. Above all, stay safe, wear a mask, people. Let us get through this. Masks work. It's not political, it's common sense. All right, everybody. Stay safe. Tom, you stay safe, stay sane, and we will talk again in a week.
Look forward to it. Thanks, man.
Take care.